The iPhone may already be obsolete, and the man who designed it may be the one who ends it. There is a device being built behind closed doors. No screen, no buttons. It fits in your pocket, and the people building it believe it will end the smartphone. For almost 20 years, one object has defined how we live, how we work, how we love, how we sleep. A rectangle of glass. We touch it more than we touch the people closest to us. We check it before we open our eyes. We carry it like a part of our body. But inside a hidden design studio in San Francisco, a small group has decided this era is over. And the man leading them is the man who started it. His name is Jony Ive, the designer of the iPhone. In May of 2025, OpenAI paid $6.5 billion to bring him in. Not for software, not for chips, for a device. A device they will not show you. A device they will not describe. A device whose existence is confirmed, but whose shape remains unseen. Sam Altman has said only this, that it will be, quote, more peaceful than a smartphone, that users will be shocked at how simple it is, and that one day you will not need your iPhone anymore. This is the story of how the smartphone era may end. Not with a war, not with a launch event, but with one man sketching something small that nobody else has seen. And by the time the world sees it, it may already be too late. The most consequential shift in modern technology is not happening on a stage. It is not being announced in a keynote. It is not trending on social media. It is happening under the surface, in a building you have never seen, by people you have never heard of, working on something that does not yet have a name. To understand what is happening, you have to understand who Jony Ive is. For nearly 3 decades, he was the soul of Apple. The iMac, the iPod, the MacBook, the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple Watch. Every object Apple shipped, every object that shaped how the modern world looks and feels, came from his hand. He stood beside Steve Jobs every single day. Jobs called him his spiritual partner. But when Steve Jobs died, something shifted. Apple turned towards services, subscriptions, margins, spreadsheets. The art faded into the operations. And in 2019, Jony Ive walked away. He started a small design firm called Love From, and for a while, the world forgot about him. But he had not stopped working. Behind closed doors, beginning in 2023, he started meeting with one man, a man rewiring the world from a different direction. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. At first, it was conversations, then sketches, then prototypes. By 2024, they had founded a hardware startup. They called it I.O. By May 2025, OpenAI swallowed it whole. $6.5 billion. All stock. No press tour. Think about what that means. The most influential industrial designer alive, the man who literally drew the iPhone, has joined the company most likely to replace it. It is, in the most restrained way possible, a betrayal. Not of Apple, the corporation, but of the idea that Apple still owns the future. For 30 years, Apple was the answer to one question: what comes next? And that answer always came from one studio, one man. Now, for the first time, the answer is coming from somewhere else. The same hand, a different empire. People close to him say he is not motivated by money. He is motivated by the next great object, the next great problem. And in his view, Apple stopped chasing the next great object a long time ago. Altman told him this could be the most important thing he has ever worked on, bigger than the iPhone. Imagine being told that after everything you have already built and believing it. Because if there is one person on Earth who could end the iPhone, it is the person who began it. There is something else. Jony Ive did not just leave Apple. He left the entire idea of Apple. The conference rooms, the MBAs, the quarterly reports. the slow, careful product cycles, the empire of safe decisions. He walked into a younger company, a faster company, a company that ships. And he brought with him the one thing OpenAI did not have: taste. So what are they building? Almost nothing has been revealed, but the fragments are remarkable. According to Axios, Bloomberg, and the Wall Street Journal, the device arrives in the second half of 2026. Pocket-sized, screenless, built to be carried, not stared at. Internal code names: Gumdrop, Sweet Pea. Reported weight: 10 to 15 grams, lighter than a coin. It listens, it sees, it understands. Microphones, cameras, sensors, always on, always aware. Not to spy, to assist. It does not wait for you to open it. It is already open. It does not wait for you to ask. It is already listening. Context aware, knowing where you are, what you are doing, what you might need before you ask. Imagine a small object, warm in your hand, that has watched your morning, learned your patterns, and is offering you the one thing you needed before you knew you needed it. That is what they are reaching for. Sam Altman has called it, quote, elegantly simple. Jony Ive said the prototypes left him wanting to lick it or take a bite out of it. That is the language of obsession, the same language he once used about the original iPhone. Now, let's be honest about what we don't know. Is it a pin, a pendant, a small box, a pair of glasses? We don't know. But the philosophy is clear. OpenAI calls it ambient computing, calm computing, a device that fades into your life instead of demanding it. No apps, no home screen, no endless scroll. Just you, and an intelligence that understands you. And here is the part that should stop you. OpenAI plans to ship 100 million of these things. Foxconn, the same factory that builds the iPhone, is lined up to manufacture them. The factory that built the phone is now building its replacement. This is not a science project. This is an industrial assault. Now, the obvious objection. Humane failed. Rabbit failed. Most AI hardware dies instantly. But none of them had Jony Ive. None of them had OpenAI. And none of them could build at Apple's scale. That is why this is different. Every previous AI device tried to replace your phone by acting like your phone. A small screen, a small app, a small idea. Jony Ive is not interested in small ideas. He has spent his career erasing complexity, removing buttons, removing wires, removing friction. Now he has been asked to remove the screen itself. The last great barrier between a human being and pure intelligence. If he succeeds, even partially, the world he leaves behind will not look like the world we live in today. Because the screen is not just glass, it is the interface for almost everything. Take it away, and what replaces it? Now turn your eyes to Cupertino. For 2 years, Apple has promised a new Siri, an AI-powered Siri, a Siri that finally works. And for 2 years, that Siri has been delayed. First to 2025, then to 2026. Now, reportedly, to iOS 27. Every delay is a year. Every year is a chapter OpenAI gets to write without them. Internal sources have called the project, quote, embarrassing. Engineers have described it as broken at the foundation. Apple even cut a deal with Google to use Gemini as the brain behind Siri, the most powerful tech company in the world, outsourcing its own intelligence. Let that sit for a moment. While Apple slips, OpenAI ships new intelligence every 6 weeks, and it gets worse. In May of 2026, reports emerged that OpenAI was preparing legal action against Apple. The reason? Apple's ChatGPT integration, OpenAI believes, was deliberately weakened, a handshake that became a chokehold. 40 engineers, according to one report, have already left Apple for OpenAI. The poaching has begun. And here is the structural truth. Apple's empire was built on one idea: that the device is the center of your digital life. The App Store, iMessage, iCloud, all of it depends on you picking up a screen and looking at it. But what if the screen stops being the center? What if the next great computer is something that listens instead of displaying? Something that thinks for you instead of being controlled by you? What if the App Store becomes irrelevant? This is the hidden danger. OpenAI is not trying to beat the iPhone. OpenAI is trying to make the iPhone unnecessary. Those are very different wars. In every empire, there is a moment where the threat is not the army at the gate. It is the slow shift of the ground beneath the throne. Apple still sells more iPhones than ever. Apple is still the most valuable company on earth. Apple is not weak, but the future does not always announce itself with a war. Sometimes it just arrives, and the old kingdom realizes, too late, that the language has changed. The danger for Apple is not that the iPhone stops selling tomorrow. The danger is that 15 years from now, the iPhone becomes the BlackBerry. Beloved, iconic, obsolete. And the only people who see this clearly are the ones who have already left. Back for a moment. Every 15 years or so, the shape of computing changes. The mainframe, the personal computer, the laptop, the smartphone. Each shift was invisible at first. Each one looked like a toy. Each one was dismissed as a gimmick, until suddenly, it was everything. We may be standing inside one of those shifts right now, not in the moment of arrival, but in the patient years before. If OpenAI is right, if Jony Ive is right, then the device they are building is not a competitor to the iPhone. It is a successor, something so different that comparing them feels strange, like comparing a car to a horse. Imagine a world where you do not pull a screen out of your pocket because the intelligence is already with you, where you do not type because it listens, where you do not search because it already knows, where the most powerful computer you own is something you forget you are wearing. That is the promise. Whether it works is another question entirely. Because here is the part nobody wants to say out loud. A device that hears everything, sees everything, knows where you are, who you are with, what you are doing. That is not just a new product. That is a new relationship between a human being and a machine, closer than a friend, more present than a partner, more aware of your life than you are. Some will love it, some will fear it. Most of us will simply get used to it. The way we got used to the rectangle of glass, and the man designing that relationship is the same man who once made a glass rectangle so addictive that billions of people cannot put it down. Maybe he will get it right this time. Maybe he won't. But the smartphone era is no longer the future. It is becoming the past. When the iPhone arrived in 2007, the people who dismissed it were the experts, the CEOs, the analysts, the men in suits who said with absolute confidence that no one would type on a piece of glass. They were not stupid. They simply could not imagine a world that did not yet exist. We may be those people now, staring at our phones, calling this new device a gimmick, laughing at the idea that something so small could change so much. One day, looking back, we will realize the future was never loud. It was just patient. The device may succeed. The device may fail. Jony Ive has been wrong before. OpenAI has been wrong before. But the bet itself, that the smartphone is not the final form of computing, that bet is already winning. Because every major company in technology now believes it. Meta, Google, Microsoft, Samsung, even under the surface, Apple. The only argument left is who builds it first and who builds it best. Right now, that race is being led by the man who started the last one. 20 years ago, Jony Ive gave humanity a screen. Now, he may be the one to take it away. The man who built the iPhone may become the man who ends it. And when this story is told, 20 years from now, this is the chapter we are living in right now. If you want to watch the smartphone era end in real time, subscribe to Byte. because the most important devices are the ones nobody is talking about yet.